Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today we're going to be going over my picks for the 10 best JDM cars in Grand Theft Auto Online. Now before the JDM nerds get in the comment section and start talking about, well, this actually isn't a JDM car because XYZ reason. It's Japanese cars. Some of them are JDM. Most of them are JDM, I would say. But a few are also just Japanese cars that come from Japan. So you can save your comments, you nerds. Leave a like if you enjoy it, dislike if you don't. Consider subscribing if you're new. Let's get started. Starting things off at number 10, we get the Dinka RT3000 for $1,286,250 to $1,715,000 if you don't have the trade price. The RT3000 is based off of the Honda S2000 in real life, which is a car that was sold in Japan, but I do believe it was also sold in North America. This thing came out with the Tuners DLC back in the summer of 2021. It's got a ton of customization options. This thing's really cool for that reason. You can make this thing look like basically just a chassis with nothing on it. You can remove the bumpers, you can remove the hood, you can remove the fenders, you can remove a lot of stuff from this car. But for as much as you can remove, you can also add like 10 times as many other things as well to customize the car and make it a little bit more unique and make it your own, which is really sweet. The RT3000 is also, again, part of the Tuners DLC, so it gets access to the stance, which is able to be modified through the Manage Vehicles menu in the interaction menu. That will allow you to stance the car and it will get it to go a little bit faster in a straight line, but it is also able to make the car drift a little bit easier and a little bit better, or at least have less traction, which is pretty cool. The RT3000 is a pretty fun car to drive. It has pretty good grip. It definitely feels like more of a driver's car than anything else. And it's just kind of an engaging experience to drive it. It will try to slip out on you occasionally, but it is pretty easy to get back under control. It's a fun car. I like it. It's lightweight. It's a fun little sports car, just like the S2000 in real life. Really no complaints about it. You should definitely buy one. Number 9, we got the Annis Euros X32 for $1,499,000. And this is a relatively new car. This was added in the summer, and it's based off of the Nissan 300ZX in real life, which is a really cool car. Now that was offered in North America, I do believe, as well as Japan, so not technically JDM, bro, but anyways, it's pretty cool. The customization options for this car are not exactly the most ideal. I feel like they missed a lot of opportunities to give this thing a lot of really cool aftermarket options that would probably be available in real life that just are not available in game. And for that reason, I've had to list this a little bit higher on the list at number 9. It's not the best, but it's far from the worst. It's a fun car to drive. It has really good grip, decent acceleration, and an okay top speed. I like the look of the 300ZX in real life, and the Annis Euros X32 in-game is pretty good looking. The only real beef that I have with this car is the spoiler options for it are pretty terrible. I'm really not too big of a fan of them. But if they were to add some spoiler options to this car, I think that it could be rectified, and I would like it a lot more. Overall, it's a good car still, and I think it is worth owning, or at least giving a shot to. If you do play on console, the Annis Euros X32 is also upgradable with HSW, which is pretty cool, and that will allow this car to actually be insanely fast. So that is a pretty cool upgrade and a pretty cool option for those of you that do have it available to you. And if you do have it available to you, I would recommend trying this out because it is a pretty awesome car with HSW. And number 8, we got the Fathom FR36 for $1,610,000, and this car was added with the Chop Shop DLC, and it's based off of the Infiniti G35 in real life, which was actually sold in Japan under a different name, and it was actually referred to as a Skyline, which is pretty cool. A lot of people don't seem to know that, but it is pretty neat nonetheless. The Fathom FR36 was also the first vehicle that introduced the new drift tuning modification into GTA Online. It was available for it as well as several other cars that are going to be coming up on this list. The drift tuning is pretty cool. It makes the cars drift super easily, almost too easily in my opinion, but they have rectified it a little bit since they initially released it into the game, which is good. The Fathom FR36, the only thing that I really don't like about it is that a lot of the customization options, particularly on the bumpers, are almost all identical, but they just have different sort of canard options on them and things like that, but they mostly look exactly identical, which is kind of annoying to me. But nonetheless, the Fathom FR36 is actually a really cool car. It used to be the fastest coupe in the game until the Annis Euros X32 released and had HSW, but the Fathom FR36 still is a really good car, and a really good drift car at that. I definitely look into this one personally. I think it's a fun car. At number 7, we got the Karen Futo GTX for $1,192,500 to $1,590,000 if you don't have the trade price. The Karen Futo GTX is a car that I refer to as probably the best drift tunable car in GTA Online, if not one of the very best, and that's largely due to the fact that this car is just so small and maneuverable, and you can weave in and out of traffic while drifting with it a lot easier than you can in cars like the Drift Tampa, for example, that also have the drift tuning modification. This thing was also released with the Tuners DLC, so it gets a ton of customization options similar to the Dinka RT3000 that we went over a little bit earlier. Plus, this thing is also pretty iconic because it was in that one show. I don't know the name of it, I haven't seen it, but a lot of people really like it because of that, and I think that this thing did get a big boost in popularity from appearing in that show that I still don't know the name of. The GTX is a pretty cool car. I've previously absolutely hated on this thing, but with the drift tuning modification, I do feel like it is actually a pretty good car now, and especially for drifting. Otherwise, it's kind of mid and kind of really basic, but it is a pretty cool car with drift tuning on it. I can't deny that, at least. At number 6, we got the Karen Sultan RS Classic for $1,341,750 to $1,789,000 if you don't have the trade price. This was also released with the Tuners DLC, and that's going to be something I'm going to say a few more times in this video. And it's generally regarded as the best Tuners DLC car for the races. They are found within the LS car meet or through the job menu under races. Basically, the races that were added with the Tuners DLC or the Tuners subcategory of races. This thing's usually the best car to use in those races because they are relatively tight spaces a lot of the time, and this thing is pretty tiny. It's based off of the Subaru 22B rally car, which is very famous and a lot of people really like. And it's got a lot of great customization options as well, hence being in the Tuners DLC. Plus, you can also stance it same way that you can with the Futo GTX and the Dinka RT3000, so that is pretty cool too. This thing does get really good grip, great acceleration due to the all-wheel drive as well, and the top speed isn't overly high, but it's not slow either. Overall, it's a really good car. I definitely would recommend owning one of these at some point in GTA Online. At number 5, we got the Annis Remus, yet another Tuners DLC car. It goes for $1,027,500 to $1,370,000. The Annis Remus is a great car. This thing looks absolutely incredible. It's got great customization. The performance, however, isn't necessarily the best. It's actually relatively slow, but the handling is fantastic on it, I must say that. But probably the coolest thing about the Annis Remus is that it also got the drift tuning modification, so this thing is easily driftable, like the Karen Futo GTX, which is pretty sweet. The Remus drifts really nicely, it's very consistent across the board. The only issue that I really have with it when it comes to drifting is it's just a very long feeling car, especially in comparison to the Futo GTX that we talked about a little bit earlier, but the Remus is just so sick looking. It's based off of a Nissan S13 in real life, which is a very cool car and a very sought after one as well. The Remus looks so cool, you can tint the headlights on it and everything like that, and you can make some really clean looking builds with the Remus. I really like it, you should definitely try this one out. Very cool car. At number 4, we got the Karen Calico GTF for $1,496,250 to $1,995,000, which is very expensive. It is one of the better Tuners DLC cars because, yes, again, this was also added with the Tuners DLC. The Calico GTF is all-wheel drive and it's based off of the Toyota Celica rally cars or street cars, depending on how you want to go about it. But I would say in-game it's more of the rally sort of esque version of the Toyota Celica. It's got a lot of customization to reflect this, but a lot of other customization that can just reflect a pretty clean looking street build of the car. For a long time, this thing was actually really quick. Until they nerfed the abilities of stancing a lot of the Tuners cars, this thing was actually insane. It was lightning fast, and for the auto shop contracts, it was a great vehicle to use. You could get to them super fast because the top speed on this thing was like in the 140s, I do believe it was, maybe even the 150s with the stance applied to it, and it was also quite controllable, unlike a lot of other cars when stance is applied to them. The Calico GTF does have a slight issue with understeer, which I do find to be quite annoying, why I don't personally drive this thing, but it does have so much customization and it is so good in so many other ways that I felt like I should probably put it a little bit higher up on the list. It's a very cool car, pretty underrated, and I would definitely recommend checking this one out, guys. I think a lot of you are going to like the Calico GTF if you've somehow never had one before. At number 3, we got the Annis Elegy Retro Custom for $904,000, and you pretty much knew this thing was going to make an appearance on this list at some point because it's just so iconic. You take the regular Elegy RH8, which everybody gets for free in GTA Online, and take it to Benny's, spend $904,000 on it, and boom, you can get the Annis Elegy Retro Custom, which unfortunately is actually slower than the regular Elegy RH8. So for 900 grand, you're actually de-upgrading your free car, which is kind of ridiculous. But anyways, very cool car. For a long time, this was actually the most customizable car in all of GTA Online, which is pretty fascinating. But this thing also sounds absolutely fantastic and is a great driving experience. It's all-wheel drive, it has very good grip in the corners, great acceleration, and a pretty decent top speed as well. Plus, you can make really famous and very iconic builds using it, like the Fast and Furious Skyline, obviously, as I'm sure everybody is aware. This vehicle is super sweet though, and I would definitely recommend owning one of these at some point in GTA Online if you don't own one already, which I feel like there's a pretty good chance that you already do. At number 2, we got the Karin S95 for $1,995,000, plus an additional $525,000 for the HSW upgrade. This thing is based off of the Subaru BRZ, Toyota GT86, or the Scion FRS, depending on which market those vehicles are available in for you, and this is definitely a car that is just Japanese, not necessarily JDM. This thing on consoles that have HSW available for them is an absolute rocket. It is so fast with the HSW upgrade, but it's also a little bit uncontrollable because the tires are so skinny on it, you can just lose control like nothing. But it is a very fun car nonetheless, and it's very fast. It tops out at about 155 miles per hour, which is pretty crazy, damn quick for sure. The customization for this car is pretty good, although I would say it could be a little bit better. Some more spoiler options and things like that would have been nice to see for the S95, as well as more bumper options and skirt options in my opinion. But nonetheless, I do feel like it is a pretty good car. I definitely would have liked to see a wide body kit available for it at some point, but it doesn't seem like that's ever going to happen, unfortunately. But it is a great car to drive around. It's very fun to go drifting in and sliding around in, or just going straight down the highway or hitting some corners. This thing is very good at all of it, and it's a relatively cheap car given the performance that you're actually going to get out of the vehicle. For an honorable mention, we have the Dinka Jester Classic for $790,000. This thing is of course based off of the Toyota Supra, as I'm sure I probably didn't even need to say. But a lot of people absolutely love the Supra in real life, but unfortunately the Dinka Jester Classic in-game does have a few issues, and the main one is engine resistance, which basically makes the car accelerate slower and have a lower top speed. Albeit Rockstar has kind of fixed this issue a little bit and made the car actually a lot more viable than it previously was. However, the job is still not quite done. It should be faster than this, but it is a relatively fast car now. The customization is also pretty awesome on this thing, but it could have just a little bit more in my opinion. But it is a slightly older car, so I guess I can forgive Rockstar a little bit in that regard. The Jester Classic sounds really good. It has good handling, mostly because it's not fast enough to not have good handling, but good handling nonetheless. The acceleration is okay, and the top speed is also okay. This thing just is such a waste of potential in my opinion. It could have been so much better. With that being said, it's still worth buying, I would say, but there's a lot of cars that you should probably buy before you buy a Dinka Jester Classic. And at number 1, I've selected the Annis ZR350 for $1,211,250 to $1,615,000 if you don't have the trade price. The ZR350 is based off the Mazda RX-7 in real life, particularly the FD RX-7. It's got a lot of great customization options. The livery options are super sweet looking. It is very, very good once you start customizing this car. And it's very easy to make it look good in a lot of different varieties. You can go for a super time attacky looking build, or you can go for a really clean street build as well, or you can go for like almost a stock build and it can still look really good. It also has pop-up headlights, which is a huge bonus in my opinion. But probably the best thing about the ZR350 on top of all of this is that you can also put the drift tuning modification onto it to allow it to drift super easily. It's also a tuner's DLC vehicle, so if you don't apply the drift tuning modification, you can actually stance it and make this car significantly faster than it should be, but it will cost you a little bit in the handling department. But regardless, it is an absolutely awesome car, and I would definitely recommend owning an Ennis ZR350 in GTA Online. Well, there you have it, guys. That's been my list for the 10 best JDM cars in GTA Online. Let me know if you think I missed any in the comment section down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, dislike if you didn't, of course, and consider subscribing to my channel if you guys are new and you want to see more content like this. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, take care. Peace.